Welcome to Whiskey Nightcaps, the channel where we sip a little something before bedtime. I am your host, Jason Davis, and tonight is the battle of the blended bourbons. Prior to my time, and probably prior to some of your time, the idea of blending bourbon was a no-no. Those whiskey purists, those darn whiskey purists, they were just against anything other than the tradition of just putting the whiskey in the barrel and letting it age, bottling it, and putting it out to the public. When you think about blended whiskeys, usually Scotland is what comes to mind. That's what comes to mind. That's the area of the world where blending whiskeys is a normal thing, but when you think about bourbons, typically that's not the case. And there's a lot of strict rules and even actual laws that have been put into play to regulate how bourbon is actually made. However, it's a new day and a lot of different things are being done with whiskey that, I can't lie, I actually appreciate. So let's introduce our contenders. Now we have here Bardstown Bourbon, and this is Fusion Series number 3. This whiskey is straight out of Bardstown. Where else? These guys are doing a lot of different innovative things with whiskey. However, both of these companies are young companies, which means that most likely, without even having to read the labels or go into the history of the company or the history of the whiskey, you know that they are sourcing whiskey somewhere. Maybe not all of it, but a good portion of it is going to be sourced. I want you to think for a second. Put on your hat, your thinking hat, your whiskey hat. If you open up a whiskey distillery today, you would not be able to legally sell anything called bourbon for at least 2 years, right? Which is what's called a straight bourbon. Straight bourbon is aged for a minimum of 2 years, but you cannot go in there, make your distillate, bottle it, and put it on the shelf and call it whiskey legally. You can't do it. So how do they make money? They purchase whiskey that's already been distilled and aged from other distilleries, and they sell it with their label on it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a business. They're in the business of making money, but as consumers, we're in the business of saving money and also knowing exactly where our products come from. Now, this particular bottle here, series number 3, is a blend that is 40% sourced. So 40% of this whiskey comes from another distillery in Kentucky, and the other 60% is produced by Bardstown. But there's actually 3 blends in this one whiskey. So that 40% is a 13-year-old bourbon, 74% corn, 18% rye, and what is that? I can't see. 8% malted barley. 18% is a 3-year, 60% corn, 20% wheat, 12% malted barley, and the last portion is, which is 42%, is 60% corn, 36% rye, and 4% malted barley. Now, I actually saw this tonight, but I already had this bottle. I saw this tonight when I was going to pick up something else, and I noticed that the price point was about $56, somewhere in there, and a lot of the other lines are more expensive. They go up in price, but I don't remember paying that much for this particular whiskey. But the other contender, Fistful of Bourbon. Now, let's go back to what I said earlier about blended whiskeys having that history in Scotland. I was shocked to find out that the people who put this together actually are from Scotland, but the bourbon, of course, is from America because it cannot be called bourbon or legally sold as bourbon if it's made somewhere else, even if they follow the same exact process. So this young lady from Scotland was sent here by her family to find 5 bourbons that they would blend into this one bottle. Now, They don't exactly give you the percentages of the different mash bills of the 5 different bourbons that go in here. They just give you the flavor profiles of those 5 types. So the one that's supposed to be the base is balanced and sweet. Then they have a floral, spice, toffee, and cinnamon / licorice. Which one head to head will come out on top? I will say this one is actually half the price of the Bardstown. So the Fistful I got for about $26 plus tax retail price. All right, so enough with the talk. Let's go head to head with these 2 contenders and see who comes out on top. But we will start, as we always do, with the nose. We'll start with the Bardstown. Oh, also, I forgot to mention the Fistful of bourbon. These are young bourbons. It's a minimum of 2 years. They don't give you the age of any of these, so it's a non-age statement where you have on the side all of the ages of the bourbons that are blended into this particular whiskey. But anyway, let's get into the nosing. Getting the spice, you can smell that rye. It's forward with the spice, forward with the rye. Almost reminds me a little bit of the Wild Turkey line. There's some toffee behind the rye, behind that spice, that cinnamon spice. It's coming, wait a minute, what was that? Got a little bit of fruitiness, which most likely is from the barley. Let's go over to the other contender, to the underdog. Totally different profiles. Let's open this back up a little bit. I'm definitely getting those floral notes because there was something there that I was trying to pick out that just, I couldn't put it into words. But that's that floral scent, which I'm really not used to getting from the bourbons that I drink. Like it almost smells like a bouquet almost. The spice is there, but I mean, almost just like it says on the label, it's a soft spice. It's not a really harsh or rye forward smell. But I guess you also have to take into account that this is 45% ABV. This is 49.45, almost 50%. So I mean, that's definitely going to affect the profiles that you're able to extract on the nose. So let's see. That's a little rough. That's a little rough, which probably comes from those 2 young whiskeys. That 60% 3-year whiskey blended here. A lot of the spice, it's a little hot. It's almost like a holiday spice, like a Christmas spice. Let's get a little sip of water, cleanse the palate, and then we'll see what's up with this fistful of bourbon. All right, we're going in on this fistful of bourbon. Let's see. This one definitely had a lighter mouthfeel, almost like a cooling effect, which is weird, you know, which is weird for whiskey. But as far as the flavor profile is concerned, even though you don't get a lot of the spice on the nose, you pick a lot of that up on the tongue, especially on the finish. That floral note that was on the nose doesn't translate that much into the actual tasting. All right, so we're gonna let this sit just for one more second, then we're gonna go back in for round 2, finish off these nightcaps. This is probably a little bit more than a nightcap, but we're gonna finish these off. It's my job to do so for your entertainment purposes. I have to drink whiskey. And we are back, ready for round 2, ready to do this, to sacrifice my body for science. The Bardstown has a softer scent now. Very appealing. Sweet, it's sweet. Getting a lot of that vanilla and that caramel butterscotch kind of scent. Let's see. I still get that kick, that aggressiveness from the young whiskeys, but wait a minute. It's still going. It's still going. It's like the Energizer Bunny. It keeps on going. It's better on the second go round. However, I don't like the finish. The finish is like the spices are like piling up in like the back of your tongue, the back of your throat. I don't like that much, but on the front, like as soon as you take it in, you get that sweetness that I just spoke about, that maple syrup type of sweetness. But the finish, I don't care for that too much, and it still is just a little harsh. There's a leathery kind of note on the Fistful as I go back in for the second whiff. Tobacco scent, like fresh tobacco. And there's this note there that I can't put my finger on. Something definitely different, something unique, which I'm sure is a byproduct of mixing 5 different bourbons with 5 different mash bills. If I have to be totally honest, I anticipated coming into this battle of the blended bourbons. You see how I do that? Those letter B's? I assumed that the Bardstown would lose. I did. I have to be honest. I can't lie to you all. I can't lie to the people. When I first had these, my initial reaction was I did not like the Bardstown, and I haven't touched it since then until tonight for the purpose of this video. But I did like the Fistful of Bourbon, but now putting them head to head from the scorecard of the judges, it's not a KO, but from the scorecard of the judges, the Bardstown Bourbon is the heavyweight champ of the blended bourbon battle royale. And who knows, maybe we'll come back and we'll throw in a High West against our new champion and see what happens. Thank you all for taking the time to view this video. Please make sure you subscribe to keep this coming. Hit that notification bell. Ding, 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 ding.